Hello chickadees, welcome back to my channel. Today we're doing a story time, a little cozy story time. We're back in my bed, just hanging out and get comfortable because this is going to be a 3-part story time. There's no way that I could fit it all into one video. I could, but I don't think that you guys would want to sit here and listen for that long. So I'm going to divide it into 3 parts, maybe 2, depending on how quickly I get through everything. But your girl has notes. I have had to make some bullet points here just to stay on track because this is a pretty lengthy story and it's a wild one. So this is the story time of my addiction, how I became an addict, what it was like to be in active addiction, and then what led me to getting sober. So first and foremost, I have CPTSD. I talk about it all the time. It's part of who I am. It's called complex post-traumatic stress disorder, and it usually happens through complex traumatic events from your childhood. It doesn't necessarily always happen in childhood, but it can stem from childhood, and that's where mine stems from. And the thing about it, the thing that's complex about it that I do want to bring attention to is that not everything is bad in the traumatic events. Like, I had a pretty decent childhood, but there are some things about the way that I grew up that I don't want to get into that were long lasting for me, traumatizing for me, and definitely impacted the way that I lived and continue to live. So I believe that that has a big part into why I became an addict and why I was susceptible to it. Also, the disease of addiction, because it is a disease, don't even fight me on that, can live in you dormantly forever. But I happen to have the right circumstances within my environment and within the choices that I was making that led to me ultimately becoming an addict. So with all of that said, I was unschooled my whole life, not homeschooled. I was homeschooled for a while, but eventually became unschooled, which for those of you that don't know, that is just self-initiated learning. And it wasn't like the scary unschoolers that like, they don't get any kind of education. Like, my parents did encourage me to learn, and I was being given opportunities. Like, if I was interested in something, then they would make sure that I took all the classes that I wanted to. And like, I wasn't given no education. I just was given an unacceptable education to society's terms. So with that, I never wanted to go to school. And in fact, school sounded horrifying to me, like actually traumatizing, scary, never want it to happen. And that's for a couple of reasons, none of which I'm going to mention right now. But just know that school seemed absolutely terrifying to me. And it wasn't until I was about 13, 14, I started going to this place called Sago Lily School. And it was a school for unschoolers. So I know. But you basically go and it is just self-directed learning, and you go, and if you want to take a class, the staff members are there to help you in that, to assist you in whatever learning you want to do. It's a cool experience. I don't know how it is now, but when I went there, I really did love it. I also met my first like boyfriend there. We weren't even really boyfriend and girlfriend, but I met him there and we got a little bit too intimate. That's why my parents pulled me out, is because I was having sex. So I went on lockdown, in my home is what it was called. And it's where I lost all privileges. I couldn't see anybody, talk to anybody, like nothing. And so I just spent time in my room. I was fucking depressed. Life was shit. And I really relied on my music to get me through. I played guitar and wrote music, and I would go to like open mics, the one specifically at Pat's Barbecue if you live in Salt Lake. And I don't know if Pat's Barbecue is in other places, but They used to have an open mic. I loved going there. I loved playing my music. But anyways, so leading up to this moment, things were rough. I did also struggle with self-harm and other forms of addiction. So even though I wasn't doing substance abuse, I still struggled with that addictive compulsion. When I turned 15, I was given the opportunity by my parents to go to a place called City Academy. It's a public charter school. There were like 100 people in the whole school. Maybe a little bit more, maybe a little bit less, I don't know. And I had tried to go there when I was younger, in 7th grade, and I got like bullied. It was a really bad situation. The principal did nothing, but the principal had changed by the time that I was 15, so we tried it again. And I went and I was like super scared. I made a lot of friends there and we were super weird together, just being goofy and silly. I wasn't smoking weed or doing any drugs yet. I was just like hanging out with people and being funny. And it was a vibe. It was super fun. And I met this guy, we'll call him C. We got to know each other more. We started hanging out. There was a McDonald's by the school and we would leave to go there during lunch sometimes. And he like put his arm around me and he was like, so you want to be my girlfriend, like that. And it was core memory for me. Yeah, it was really exciting for me and I said yes, of course. I was totally head over heels in young love with him. So yeah, I dated C for a while and I knew that he smoked weed. He also smoked cigarettes. And I was 15, he was 16. And yeah, I mean, I thought that was crazy that he did that stuff. And I really, really judged him for smoking cigarettes because I had always been told that that was like the worst thing you could ever do and like all this stuff. I also was told that weed was like the devil's lettuce, like not from a religious point of view, but just that it was so bad for you. And so I was really obsessed with him and he was like, do you want to smoke with me? And I was like, okay, I guess. And so I tried smoking with him and it was life-changing for me. Like I laughed my ass off. I got the munchies. I had the full experience. The very first time I tried it, it didn't do anything because I didn't know how to inhale. So leave that experience aside. But the first time I got high with him, crazy. I was like obsessed immediately. Like actually, like every time we hang out, we have to do this. And so we did. We would just get high in his room all the time. His parents knew that he smoked weed and they didn't care. We would go over to his friend's house and smoke there, and then we would drink sometimes. And I wasn't like a huge fan of drinking, but I thought it was fun. I never really let myself get drunk though. I was mostly just obsessed with smoking weed. I loved getting high. And so that's kind of like that was my first substance addiction. And yes, you can get addicted to weed. For everybody that's like, you can't get, you can. Addiction is addiction and you can get addicted to anything. So fast forward, he was basically like living in my parents' house. I lived in the basement room of my parents' house and we were smoking weed down there all the time. Like it was very obvious, but we thought we were so sneaky. We were very, very intimate, like all the time. So being very young, I just feel like I was developing at such like a weird rate and I was doing a lot of things that a more mature brain would have handled better, but I was crashing out every single day. Like I was not balanced. We dated for 11 months and eventually he broke up with me and it was the most tragic thing for me. I was devastated. And nothing was going to make me feel better. And I spent a long time in a really deep, dark depression. And it was horrible. He broke up with me 2 weeks before our 1 year anniversary. So it was just even more devastating. Like, it was awful. And he drew it out. Like, he would continue to come over and like do all of the boyfriend stuff, but not claim the title. So it was like a really sad and hard situation for me to be in. So in that experience, I started to get on dating profiles and made friends with guys that would buy me weed and hang out with me for favors or for no favors. And there were a lot of adult men that would hang out with me, a literal adolescent child, to give me stuff. So eventually, my mom and dad put me into Olympus High School, and this was like a high school, like a public school that was like real. The other one was very small. This one had like a lot of fucking people there, and they were all Mormon. So I felt totally alone still, totally fucked up. Like, nobody there was like me. And I just didn't have that same feeling that I had at City Academy of like finding a group of people that liked me, that were like kind of a little bit weird like me. And so it was a really lonely and depressing situation. In an attempt to feel closer to my ex that I so desperately wanted back, I started smoking cigarettes. I would hang out with this girl at the time, that ended up becoming my girlfriend, and we dated for a while. But when we were still just friends, I would hang out with her and her other friend, and she ended up introducing me to cigarettes and pills and things like that. And I would smoke cigarettes, and immediately, like literally that night, the first time I smoked the cigarette, it literally happened like how they say, like, I was immediately addicted. Immediately. And I never wanted to go without cigarettes again. It was like everything to me. The first time that I smoked a cigarette by myself, I was sitting down in my windowsill in the basement, like in my room, and I was like blowing it out the window, and I stood up to, go close the window and everything. And I was like closing the curtains, and I fell backwards, and I crawled to my hands and knees to the bathroom, and I puked my guts out. Like, the nicotine high was so fucking intense. And immediately I was like, oh my God, that was amazing. Let me do it again. So when I was 16, I was moved upstairs because all of this shit was going down. I was like acting a fool. I was smoking weed and cigarettes, and my parents weren't having it. So they moved me upstairs into a room that was straight across from theirs, so they could like keep an eye on me. And yeah, I eventually, the loneliness grabbed a hold of me. The depression was so real. The devastation was so real. I attempted suicide, and I overdosed. I went to bed. I laid down, and I was like, hey, this is it. Like, I'm goodbye. That was hard. But I woke up, and I had to tell my dad, I was like, I think I need you to take me to the hospital. I tried to overdose. I think they're going to have to pump my stomach. And he was like, and so we went to the hospital. They didn't pump my stomach. They just had to pump me with a bunch of saline. And so after that, my parents put me in a mental institution. And I lived there for a few weeks. And by the end of it, I was slapped with a diagnosis of bipolar disorder, which I do not have. And I left on a cocktail of like 8 different medications. And it was horrible. I tried to get my life back on track. I was like doing all the things to like feel better, and I didn't have the support system that I needed to sustain that happiness or that good feeling. So eventually it just kind of fell off. Let me look at my notes. All right. So I was 17 and I got my first job. So I started working at Payway. I loved my coworkers. They were super cool to me. They were all in their 20s and had like crazy hair. One of them had a lot of piercings. I had always wanted piercings. But yeah, it was a cool environment for me. And eventually one of the guys, and keep in mind, I am 17 during this. He was, I don't even remember, but I want to say that he was about 23, 24. And I started hanging out with him outside of work. Like we just decided to take our break together one day. I asked, I was like, do they drug test here? And he was like, no, it's a restaurant. The fuck? I was like, I don't know. It's my first job. And he was like, do you smoke? And I was like, yes. And so we started smoking together. I caught feelings for him and he took advantage of that. We would always go over to one of my coworkers' house, to her house and hang out, which is fucking crazy to me because as an adult, I would never invite a random 17-year-old coworker over to my house. That's so fucking weird. That is really fucking weird. I wouldn't let that happen on my watch. And she was a mother. She had a little girl. So it was just a super weird environment, but I was not the adult there. I wasn't the one that needed to like say like, this is weird. Maybe you guys shouldn't be doing this. But they would buy me cigarettes all the time and we would party all the time. Eventually, me and that guy started having sex. We were getting really, really close. And I so sad. Like, it makes me sad to think about. I was like, so are we like boyfriend and girlfriend? Are we gonna like, and he was like, no, that really hurt. That hurt. That was a really big life lesson for me. And it really fucked me up. So partying almost every single night with them, drinking all the time, smoking weed all the time, smoking cigarettes all the time, all the things. It was during the winter one season and when I was 17 and it was like super, super icy. There was like a full on ice storm. And I remember I was like, I do not want to go to work today. I hope that I break my ankle going to work. That's how bad I don't want to go. And I didn't break my ankle going to work. But I worked a 12-hour shift, and as I was leaving, I broke my ankle slipping on some ice. So yeah, I broke my ankle and I was bedridden for fucking ever. I had to get so much surgery done on my ankle. I was forced to be in a position where I didn't have access to weed. I didn't have access to alcohol. The cigarettes that I did have, I was like smoking out my window. Right across from my parents, so they all knew. Like, my door was taken away. The whole situation was fucked. I hated that so much, but that was like months of my life. Smoking cigarettes out the window, getting in trouble almost every single night. My parents didn't know what to do with me. Yeah, it was bad. And my mom had a C-section from my younger sibling when she gave birth to them, and she had a bunch of pills in her bathroom, and I had run out of the painkillers from my surgery, so I went and I took all the pills that I could find, and I was just taking random shit. Like, I'm sure some of that wasn't even for pain. It was like some like antibiotics or like weird shit. Like, I was just taking whatever. Like, I just wanted to take things, which true sign of an addict. Like, I just wanted to use. So eventually, I started meeting a bunch of people off of this site called Meet Me and hanging out with them. I was surprisingly still holding down my job. My ankle recovered. I was wearing a boot, but I was still working and still going to work and doing all the things. But I was deeply outcasted from the friend group that I had of the, those adults that were very wrong to have let me party at their house all the time. But anyways, I started meeting a bunch of people off Meet Me and hanging out with randos. Like, I was constantly putting myself in scary positions, and I just, like, I didn't care. I really didn't care. Like, it was scary in the moment, but at least somebody wanted me in the moment. Like, at least I was having some kind of connection. That was really hard for me to explore when I got sober. So eventually on Meet Me, I met this guy, we'll call him R, and I went over to his house and we smoked weed. He was around my age. I think he was like 19. He smoked weed and hung out, and we hung out like a few times after that. And then eventually he was like, hey, come over to like my friend's house. Let's go hang out with them. And I drove us to his friend's apartment, and I walked in and it was 3 different guys. All in their very early 20s, one of which would become my future husband. But yeah, I met them and I started dating one of the guys in that friend group. Not Ryan, but one of them. We'll call him B. And shit got really, really intense really quickly. And it was also inappropriate. Like, I can't believe how many people took advantage or allowed me to be in their space as an adult. Even as like a 21-year-old, I couldn't imagine hanging out with a 17-year-old. It's just so fucking weird to me. I don't understand how that happened so much. I started dating him and I said, fuck you to my parents. I was not happy at home. I wasn't given the support that I needed. So I left and I moved in with this guy, the 2 other guys as well, Ryan and the other roommate that we had. So yeah, we all lived together and things got really, really fucking toxic between me and B. It was like a really intense, like BDSM situation. And I don't want to say what subcategory, but just know that it had stuff to do with age play. So I was in a really weird position where I was just being encouraged to be one way, but then being judged and not it wasn't okay to be that way outside of sex. So it was just like, I mean, I didn't have the brain to comprehend the boundaries there. I was like smoking weed more, smoking cigarettes more, and I also started to do hard drugs, which also made the mental confusion and the stuntedness even worse, because I was doing things like we were doing Molly, like research chemical drugs, which were not popular psychedelics. They were still things that were being researched. Like, it was really fucking dangerous. We would do things like that. We would combine drugs. Like, for instance, I think that like shrooms and LSD is called flower tripping or something, like, I don't know. Stupid shit. Like, we were doing crazy stuff, and I was doing a bunch of psychedelics for the first time. Like, I was not in a safe place. Like, no judgment to anybody that does that stuff, but no. Eventually, I started doing this drug called Robo, which is dextromethorphan. There is a pure form of it, but me and Ryan, my now husband, but my roommate at the time, we would just get it through Delphsum, which is cough syrup. And it's called Robo tripping. And me and Ryan were super, super addicted to it. We did it all the time. Like, literally every day we would go to Walmart, steal a bunch of Delsum, and head back home, chug that shit, and trip all night. We got really, really close, and I fell in love with him. He was really sweet to me, and he wanted to talk about, like, what I liked. He wanted to know me, because we had like deep talks. We would stay up literally all night talking and just getting to know each other. And I just fell so in love with him. And the situation with B got really, really abusive, not just mentally, but physically. And I fucked up a lot. There were a lot of fucked up things that I was doing. I was cheating on him and I was doing really awful things. It just wasn't a great situation. So eventually, a bunch of shit was going down. Everything was awful. I was getting abused. And I fell out of love with B and fell into love with Ryan, and we got kicked out. I remember calling my parents and I was like, I'm going to change my life. I want to get my GED. Please let me bring this man that I've fallen in love with. Let him live with us. He has nowhere to go and like all this stuff. And so they were like, okay, fine. You can stay in the trailer, the little camper trailer that we have parked in our driveway. And until you get things figured out, that's where you can stay. And so we moved in with my parents. Okay, that's as far as I'm going to go today. If you're struggling with addiction, or if you know somebody that's struggling with addiction, I'm sorry. It's a rough ride, and I don't wish it upon anybody. Nobody. And I think that there should be many more resources for people that are addicted. But anyways, I'm just kind of blabbing now. So yeah, thank you guys so much for listening. Thank you for hearing me blab my story, and for hopefully not judging me too much, and for just being present with me as I kind of talk about what my experience with addiction was, because it's crazy and it's going to continue to get a little more crazy, so be prepared. But I love you all, and I hope you have a wonderful day. I'll talk to you next time. Bye.